Hey, good afternoon. My name's Jamie. Welcome back to the shop. Today I'm going to be building a diamond wheel dresser. It's a pretty simple device, piece of steel, pole, the actual dresser with a diamond bit on it. Should have a nice slip fit, and then there's also a set screw on the back. So this will be a great opportunity for me to do my first project on this machine right here, which I've not really used to date. So we're going to go through some basic operations on that as well as some setup, and I look forward to bringing you along. Thanks for watching. Yeah, so my plan in making two of these, pretty straightforward. Just going to cut them. We'll cut this guy to length, just about 3 inches, just under 3 inches. And then we will take care of all of the edges and the drilling operations. I spent a fair bit of time here checking and double checking the diameter of the diamond point that I purchased. It was supposed to be 7/16, but it was actually undersized. I wasn't really happy with how that was fitting in the hole of the old diamond point holder that I had. And unfortunately, the only reamer I have is exactly 7/16. I don't have an undersized reamer. Nor do I have a drill in that diameter. So we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there as far as how it fits. All right, so we're just going to rough out this piece here. And we'll bring that over to the bandsaw. This really is my first time doing any pseudo-serious operation on my Bridgeport, so first time dialing in the vise. You know, as always, special shout out to Mr. Pete and Blondie Hacks for their tips and tricks on how to set up your vise. I've cut out a lot of the back and forth and only shown the glory shot here, where just after a couple of taps of the hammer, it looks like I've dialed in my vise perfectly. It took a little while to get it where I wanted it to be, but learned a lot during that whole operation, and really happy with how the results came out. Quick lesson I learned here was not to use the quill necessarily on your touch-off. I just came down too far and made a nice deep groove there on that as I was pulling the quill down. You know, I think I would raise the Z-axis up next time, be able to control that a little bit better. But you can see here as I start to go past that groove's still sitting there. I'll get rid of it, but it was, you know, a little deeper than I would have liked. I will say that first time that you fly cut something is pretty exciting. You've got this carbide or high-speed steel tip flipping around, whipping around, and yet makes a great surface finish. Really fun to watch that piece of material go underneath the fly cutter. And you can see here this sped up section. It took a few passes to get that groove out, but eventually we get it out of there. And as I go through on the final pass, I bring it all the way through, and it's very subtle, but you can see I'm going to need to tram the table a little bit, just getting a little bit more of a slightly deeper cut on that back side of the fly cutter, which actually worked out really nice to make just a really refined surface finish. But from a measurement standpoint, that would obviously change your accuracy. But again, just kind of seeing some of these cuts of the raw steel, it looks pretty cool. The side milling operation, I wasn't quite sure what the finished product should look like here. You can see some really distinct grooving, coming from this cutter. Perhaps that's exactly what it's supposed to be doing, but clearly not the surface finish that I would be looking for. But I think this is maybe a rough end mill used for taking off big depths of cut here, which I just wasn't doing at the time. So we're going to make a switch here over to a fluted end mill, and just had one that was just the right height. Got so lucky on that, about 1.5 inches, and the surface finish on this was a lot better. Setting up the edge finder here, I've got a wobbler version, and the idea here is just carefully bring the material up to the edge finder. It's going to normalize, and then it'll kind of pop. And once it pops, you've reached that edge. And what I'm doing here, just double checking it. Again, first time doing this kind of stuff, really cool to see how it works, and making sure that I can repeat it. So I'm looking down at the dial on my X and Y indicator, table cranks to mark down at what location I'm hitting those edges, so that I can calculate where the middle will be for my drilling operation. A couple of points here. This video, this portion of the video, I think it's in fisheye mode on my camera. So I tend to look like I have these enormous arms and back, and that's just not the case. But rookie mistake on the camera. The second thing is I'm trying to use the edge finder and the dimensions that I had for where the edges were, how thick the material is, to calculate what the center is going to be. But I wanted to double check that, and I kind of went old school, as you'll see here. I'm double checking my measurements with just a simple technique of taking a straight edge, making diagonals from corner to corner, and where they intersect, knowing where that will be the center. That worked out okay. It took a while for me to get here, but again, this is part of the journey and part of the learning. One thing I also picked up on is some of this stuff's hard to see. Had to get the magnifying glasses out and get the flashlight out to make sure that I could see where these marks are. A DRO might be in my future, but for now I'm kind of stubborn, so I'd like to make sure I can learn how to use the dials accurately. And this is a great first project for anyone because the measurements aren't that critical. So go easy on yourself. Just have fun with it, which is, at this point, really what my focus on is, just trying these new operations and getting a hang for how the machine works. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the drills are going to be a little bit of a problem. It's interesting. This piece from McMaster-Carr is listed as 7/16, but it's actually a little bit undersized from that. If I measure it here, the micrometer, it's coming at 4. Well, I've already measured this, right? It's 430, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's undersized. It's 433, which is around 11 millimeters. 7/16 is 437. So this guy is a little bit too small. So the next size up, I have a drill that is 27/64, and 27/64, which is 4.42. That's what I've got here. So let's run that through and see how it fits. Low range. A project for another time is this handle, which is supposed to be able to readjust the positioning, is not working so I've got some really bad leverage in other spots. Oh, this just wants to go right in. I'm loving it. We are through. I was very happy with that. Okay. And now let's see how this fits. Yeah, it does not fit, and it's not supposed to. And I was, you never know if these drills might wobble a little bit and give me some more clearance, but. So the next drill I have is 7/16, which I've got a feeling is going to be too big. I'd like to have it a much more snug fit. So I'm going to have to think about that. What I thought about was just putting the 7/16 reamer in there and seeing how it fits. Low range. Yeah, see, that's the fit I was not hoping for. There's just a little bit of play in there. Really wanted it to be snugger than that. I'm disappointed that this didn't come in at 7/16. Yeah, 7/16 shank diameter. I don't love that chamfer. No, I don't like that. Don't like that much. Let's try this guy. Don't prefer that either. Like, it kind of made a ridge. That's strange. It made a ridge there, and this other side just doesn't look great. We'll have to do some more work on getting the right chamfer tools. I disliked those chamfers so much that I decided to get the fly cutter and basically take them off. This is also a great video where you can see the tramming problem that I have with the lathe. So it makes a nice cut here on the front side, and then as it comes through the back side, you can see it making just a little bit more of a cut. It makes the finish great, but it's, again, that's not exactly what you want. Should only be cutting it once. Moving on to chamfering the edges, similar results than when I was trying to do the chamfer the drill hole. Not really happy with the way that this came out. That the surface finish of those chamfers just wasn't as clean as I would have hoped. I just might have the wrong tool in here. If anybody can give me some feedback in the comments, I would appreciate it. But I pressed through, and we got all the edges chamfered up. I ended up going back over it with a basically like a hand tool to get those sharp edges off. Next operation here is to get the angle. You want a 15-degree angle for that diamond tip as it's lined up against the wheel on your surface grinder. So I'm just double checking my existing tool here. It is 15 degrees. I've just marked it up here with a Sharpie and kind of made some indicator lines on. I'm going to take this one piece and make two. Bring it over here to the Bridgeport. I actually have a really large slicing cutting blade that I can use, and I think I can make most of the cut here. What I didn't show here really well is underneath the piece of material, I've got a 15-inch angle gauge, which I've used to prop that at exactly the right angle. So now I'll set up the slitting saw, though it's bigger than a slitting saw. It's taking about 3/16 of an inch here. But we'll get that set up. We'll get the height just right. And then I'm doing this at a pretty slow speed with a fair amount of lubricating oil. It seems to be going pretty well. I'm not getting a lot of crazy noises and pushback. Didn't have quite enough clearance to make the whole cut here in one pass, so had to take a couple of different tries at it. And that sped through about 17 minutes worth of cutting. So here you can see I've got this little piece left over. I'll bring it over to the vise and just run it with a hand hacksaw to finish that up. The audio cut out on the actual video, so hope you don't mind the voiceover here to kind of walk through. But here are the two pieces after I use the hacksaw to kind of clean off that, to make that final cut. I've got a little nub left on one of them. But then moving over to set it up in the vise, I again have that 15-degree angle block underneath the material so that I can set that up, this new cut edge parallel. And then we'll run the fly cutter over it to clean up that surface. More fly cutter action coming up. It's not quite the same without that slight drone of the motor in the background, but again, I'm not sure what happened to my audio, but really happy with how that surface finish came out. Now, the prototype that I was working off of had on the bottom side where it touches the surface grinder magnet, it's angled, which we've already done, but it also has a little bit of a flat spot on one end. So, you know, for no other reason than to continue to use the fly cutter some more, I've just put these back to back so that I could cut down the top and make that flat spot. So at this point, we're at the end of day one. It's been a long time to get this far, probably 5+ hours at least to get all this stuff set up. And I can tell you editing this video has taken a while as well. So, you know, here are the two that I made and comparing it to the existing one. And one thing was the hole in the existing was slightly offset. In my case, I just wanted to make two at the same time, so I put the hole right in the middle. The next step, we'll do that tomorrow, is we're going to put a set screw in there so that we can lock in the diamond point shaft. And again, if you can't tell already, I keep putting that in there hoping that it'll fit better, but it just doesn't. It's okay, and you know, with the set screw holding it in, it's perfect. It's just fine, but I was hoping for a little bit nicer fit. The old diamond point, which I'm showing here on the left, is a bit thicker, and it does fit real nice. but it's got a terrible diamond on the top, so obviously can't use that one, but not bad for first day. Today, we're going to start going through how to make a diamond wheel dressier. How'd that sound? Dressier? Dressier? All right, our last operation here. We're going to drill and tap a hole for the set screw so we can lock this into place. Just mark this up a little bit. Okay. Let's find the center. One of the major takeaways for me is layout. Understanding how to get, accurate points on your work, is really important. So I have a lot more work to do here. I went through a bunch of mathematics that I probably didn't need to. The whole location was really good on one and not as good on the other. So my repeatability wasn't really up to par, but layout, something I have to work on. Yeah, I'd like to point out one trick here is using some old metal like banding that you might get on a pallet if you've had something shipped in. It's, it's like a spring steel. So you can take this, fold it in whatever shape you need and drop it in between your parallels. And it does a great job of holding those parallels where you want them so they're not flopping over on you all the time. What I'm doing here is setting up the X and Y axis. I'm trying to do set up the stoppers because I've got multiple operations to run here. I've got the centering drill, and then the drill, and then the tap. So I was hoping to lock down those two locations so that I wouldn't have to reset each and every time. All right, it's great to have those those X-axis stops, but now you realize that you can't change out the tool because you've locked yourself in. So we're gonna have to disconnect one of them. No big deal. This is how we learn to make room for the bit changeover. This has 3 flats on it, which I don't want to disrupt any concentricity. So I'm making sure that the flats are not on the touch points here. Make sure that it goes in enough. Very stringy chip. And we are through. Not quite as centered as I would like on that one. It's there. It's just not quite the centered piece that I would like. right, let's tap it. All right, so I have this the tap wrench, and I'm trying to figure out a way to set up a follower. First things first, we're going to have to drop this guy down quite a bit. Okay, that could be right. And I've got a dead center from my lathe that sort of fits in this 3/8 or this 3/4 inch collet. We'll see if it actually holds in there. But that would be, it just needs to stay centered just to kind of hold the back end of that tap wrench. It does feel like it's holding it. Okay, so that's in good shape. So we can put this right up in there. This should all line up. Got some Anchor Lube toothpaste. At least that's what it looks like. All right, let's see how this works. Seems to be cutting very cleanly. Pushing the chip right out the bottom. And there we go. We are through. And there you go. There's your double, triple wound chip. All right, this one ended up nice and centered. Can't say so much for this one on the right. I didn't drill this very nicely. It's off center. It'd still work, but yet another tremendous lesson learned. All right, let's head back over to the bench and clean these up and see how they work. That Anchor Lube worked really well. Impressed with that. And lo and behold, the threaded tap works. And there you have it. So, couple of things to come back. So, McMaster-Carr is where I picked up the diamond mounted cleaner for tool room grinding wheels, diamond tip wheel dresser. It's where I picked up the chunk o' steel, and I would say I'm pretty happy with how that came out. You know, this is one of those projects that dimensions aren't as important, so it was a good effort to try and kind of nail that difference that I wanted to make this slide a little bit easier. As we talked about, I didn't quite have an undersized reamer, so it's a little looser than I wanted. For that reason, I did put in a larger set screw just to make sure I could get some good torque on it, and this does feel really nice. And when using this in the machine, you know, you just want it to be steady. It doesn't have to hold a truck back. So that is it. Awesome. So thanks for hanging in there and watching my video. It's been a great project to be able to use the Bridgeport a little bit more. And as I look down here at my microphone, I see that I have collected a chip. So as always, make sure that you're wearing proper eye protection. But here's the finished piece. So I'm really happy with how that came out. This was a great beginner project, again, where dimensions weren't as important as in other projects, so I could learn what you know, what's easy and what's not so easy to do. Overall, I'm really happy with that, and thanks for watching. Till next time, have a great day.